Hey, I'll give you 30, South Sudan. You taking it?
I wouldn't take 35 and a half or whatever it was.
I need to see some clips of them.
Yeah.
South Sudan.
I need to see what they look like, though.
Man, they probably ain't got nobody over 6'3".
I looked at the roster. I didn't recognize a single name. I don't know.
South Sudan, here we come. Here we come, South Sudan.
They had to qualify.
We got South Sudan.
They sitting there laughing, man.
No, what I'm saying, like, they should have just put Lithuania in, right? Like, how does South Sudan get in?
So we might go all small lineup?
No, look, this game we gonna play Langston Galloway, Micah Powder.
Oh, yeah, Micah.
They gonna play Nigel Davis. And we still gonna win by 30.
You're lucky you're not playing East Sudan. I hear they're really loaded.
East Sudan now. Right? Where y'all get this from? They got basketball teams out there. They got basketball courts.
Dude, hey, look, they got commercial break so we all get in trouble.
Do they even got basketball courts out there anywhere?
You stop.
Wouldn't it be funny if we lost to them in a game that mattered?
No, we ain't
gonna lose no South Sudan. You doing too much.
They might be watching you right now laugh at them.
They can put me on the court versus South Sudan right now.
Thanks.
So the Olympics started with disrespect. That was Paul Pierce, Hall of Famer, longtime player. I think he played his whole career, almost his whole career, for the Boston Celtics in the NBA. Just the serious level of disrespect for South Sudan. Now we're going to talk about the Olympics on a whole, but this is how it started, right? So we got Americans who, frankly, who traveled the world, who you would think have a much broader view of the world, with people like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam, folks that are of African lineage in the NBA. You would think that folks like this wouldn't say these kinds of things, or wouldn't talk this way. But it didn't end there. There was more. So I'm going to play this next clip, and this is from Gilbert Arenas, another well-known basketball commentator, was a pretty great basketball player as well, had a few injuries that cut his career short. But this is what he had to say about South Sudan. Now, granted, guys, this is 2024. This isn't people talking in 1999. This is these guys talking 2 weeks ago about South Sudan. Listen to what Gilbert Arenas said about South Sudan when it came to their basketball team, and they were playing a friendly matchup against the United States basketball team.
Y'all, we don't supposed to be losing to air up there. Come on, man. Cool Runnings. We don't supposed to lose to the Cool Runnings team. That's the last team we supposed to lose to or be close with. They had to use the shoes that we have extra, leftover shoes. They use leftover shoes that the USA team didn't want. Y'all can use these. They don't even have basketball rims, dog. We losing to people who don't even, they got baskets in the back. They shooting on beach baskets in dirt, no shoes. And they damn near almost took us. Man. Like them to feed the children, man. $5 a day. Them. That was, flies all in their face, stomach all out. Them. Feed the children. Send wheat, send water and bread. Them. That's who we almost lost to. Y'all are, oh man, this is getting almost lost to damn Cool Runnings out in this bitch, man.
So that was reaction after the friendlies. Now, I will give Paul Pierce credit because he came back and issued an apology and gave more context for what was going on with the South Sudan team, because I think people are unaware. And that's crazy that Gilbert Arenas would speak just so flippantly like that. So let's just get right to Paul Pierce's apology before we get into the good part of the Olympics and what's been happening with Africans and the diasporans dominating in the Olympics. So let's do that. Let's do this first, and then we'll get on to that.
South Sudan for the disrespect
Here we go.
that I've given them, not having any knowledge about their team or their country. So right off the bat, I'd like to apologize. I'd like to bring some things to light because South Sudan has some players that could possibly be playing in the NBA, and William Gabriel was actually in Celtics camp. He's played for the Lakers.
Played for the Lakers.
He's been on a few.
Bad.
He's definitely an NBA player.
Yeah.
You got to give a lot of credit, and I did my research over the weekend. I apologize, and I'll be watching South Sudan more.
Yeah.
Because they were exciting to watch, and they really got my attention.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Lucia Deng was from South Sudan or Manubo.
Yeah.
So my lack of knowledge, I continue to apologize, you guys. But the reason they're at where they're at is because Lucia. He's put his own money into the basketball program and, really developed something to make a name. And, maybe it's something I said on Friday, put a battery in their back, and maybe Coach Royal Ivy, who's been in the NBA, who I played against, probably played what I said, and I'm glad they did. They showed me something. They showed pride. And you know what this says to me also when I watched it? Another thing I thought of, it showed me the seismic shift in international play. There hasn't been an American MVP since 2017, 2018. American MVP player in the NBA.
All right, so before we get into the full Olympics and everything that has been happening in the Olympics, I did want to just start with those videos because I thought it was interesting. About 2 weeks ago, I was out of town. As you guys know, this is the New York background. I'm in New York right now, or the current New York background. We're working on a streaming studio space that you guys will be seeing in a couple of weeks. But, I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, these are shows that I watch clips from all the time. And as I mentioned before, you have a number of different Africans who played in the NBA. And to be clear, Lucia Deng, who he referenced, who used his own money, Lucia Deng had a significant contract with the Los Angeles Lakers, which actually allowed him to get paid, I think, 4 years after he retired. But anyway, in any case, he then took his money and started to invest in the South Sudan basketball and just in general, because he's from South Sudan. Manu Bol, of course, is from South Sudan. Bol, who's also another NBA player, is from South Sudan. And so, I think that it was important that, I highlighted these stories because I was shocked that we have people talking about these guys as if, this is, you have very little information and knowledge as to what's happening on the continent of Africa. And that's why there are platforms like this, right? I spent 4 years on the continent, as many of you guys know who are going to be watching this replay or if you're watching this live. And, my goal was to always ensure that people didn't make ignorant statements like this. I mean, that's crazy. And so Miss P is here. Shout out to Miss P. Finally got a chance to catch her live again. It's been a while. It has been a while. Welcome back. Wow, did he really say this crazy mess? Yes, Paul Pierce, and Gilbert Arenas both said that crazy mess. Now, I wanted to just set the stage with that because I thought it was interesting that was how they were looked at in terms of the sport of basketball. But of course, they have been doing a really good job of dominating not just Africans on the continent, but diasporans from, the Caribbean and the United States alike. So what I'd like to do now is kind of walk you through what some of these teams have done. But before I do that, since the first two videos that we did were about South Sudan, I thought I would give you guys some context and really help you understand how important this was that South Sudan participated and advanced to the next round, considering how new the country is in its current iteration and also how new the team is, right? And so, I wanted to maybe just give you guys a little bit of context here. So give me 1 second to just kind of pull it up so we could talk through it. Because to me, I thought this was enlightening to hear this information because I was not even aware of these details. Now I wouldn't have gone out on a limb and said what he said, but let's start with this. Well, let's start with what was said, right? So Gilbert Arenas former NBA star, he made several derogatory and what people considered xenophobic comments about South Sudan's basketball team following their close exhibition game against Team USA. He mocked the South Sudanese team, of course, as you guys saw. And the public reaction was pretty widespread backlash. You know, prominent figures, as I mentioned before, Joel Embiid, and South Sudan Basketball Federation President Luol Deng criticized him specifically because, look, those guys are both African, grew up in Africa. Now, Joel Embiid actually plays for Team USA because he's now a U.S. citizen. He came, I think, as a 16-year-old, but he's Cameroonian. And so, you know, he obviously heard this and had some things to say. Now, Paul Pierce's comments, as you saw, he actually ended up apologizing because he ended up doing his research. But this is what Luol Deng said. Luol Deng said he responded thoughtfully to both Arenas and Pierce. He expressed disappointment rather than anger, particularly because the comments came from individuals he actually respected. Deng emphasized the importance of using this incident as an opportunity to educate and to promote cultural sensitivity. He highlighted the hard work and progress of the South Sudanese team, urging people to appreciate their achievements rather than belittle them. So let's talk a little bit about how they perform, or how they've been performing overall. So I want to just get to that quickly. I got a lot of notes here, so I want to get to that quickly. But this was crazy. So first Olympic victory on July 28th. Defeating Puerto Rico with a score of 90-79. This victory was a monumental moment for the country, symbolizing progress and hope for South Sudanese sports. You know, they did have a game against the USA on July 31st, where they faced US in their second Olympic game. Despite a spirited performance, they narrowly were defeated by the USA team when LeBron scored the last minute win. But this is obviously a huge moment for South Sudan, and I thought that that ignorance is just indicative of how many people in the United States still see the continent of Africa. I'm a fan of Gilbert Arenas' podcast, In the Arena, and I did watch Undisputed pretty regularly, the show that Paul Pierce is on, and so I think overall they have generally insightful opinions on the game of basketball, but you know, internationally speaking, there's a lot to learn, and it looks like Paul Pierce has been getting that education. It's yet to remain to be seen if Gilbert Arenas will as well. I know he went on vacation almost immediately following these remarks, and so maybe he hasn't been totally aware of what's happened. All right, so separately from that, I wanted to kind of get into some of the other sports that have dominated the news cycle, and that kind of tend to dominate the Olympic news cycle as well, and specifically the women's 100-meter dash. If you guys might recall, Sha'Carri Richardson, who is a LSU alum, you know, Louisiana State University, she failed to qualify for the Olympics in Tokyo in 2020 because she tested positive for cannabis just weeks before the Olympic trials. And so, or maybe it was actually, she maybe qualified, and then also she wasn't able to go because she tested positive. So that meant she couldn't run in the 200, the open 200, she couldn't run in the 100, and she could not run in the 4x100 meter relay, which she was expected to run in. And based on her times earlier that year, she could have potentially medaled. Fast forward to this year, she did not qualify for the 200-meter dash. And when it came to the 100-meter dash, unfortunately, the Jamaicans who normally dominate the 100 meters, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price and a few others, were not in the final round. So, Sha'Carri Richardson had been running great all year. She in the trials, or sorry, in the earlier meets, she did come in second once during the earlier meets, kind of cruising across the finish line, if I remember correctly. And so this was the finals for the women's 100-meter dash. So I'm going to play this for you and give you some commentary on the other side, because I thought it was interesting. There's a lot to cover here, and I think it'd be interesting to kind of get you guys' thoughts on this. So let's go ahead and get that thing started.
It's going to be a fresh podium. None of the Jamaicans from the Tokyo Games are racing. They're going to be fresh medal winners. Final of the women's 100 is away, and Julien Alfred got out really well. Sha'Carri Richardson's got some work to do, but it's going to be St. Lucia's. Julien Alfred wins the first ever Olympic medal for her nation.
Watching the 100-meter dash, doesn't that give you chills to watch it? No matter who's running, men or women, it always gives me chills. I love watching the 100-meter dash. It takes me back to high school days where I used to run as an alternate. It was not that fast. I ran 400. I actually medaled in states, the whole thing. We'll talk about that later. But so let's talk about this. So Julien Alfred delivered a historic performance by winning the gold medal in the women's 100-meter dash. So this victory actually marks St. Lucia's first ever Olympic medal. So they've never won bronze, they've never won silver, and they definitely never have won gold. So not only is it the first medal, but it is a gold medal. She ran a national record time of a 10.72, maintaining her lead despite heavy rain conditions. So it was raining. Sha'Carri Richardson, of course, secured the silver medal with a time of 10.87. Although she was the race favorite and the world champion earlier this year, she couldn't surpass Alfred's performance. Another American, Melissa Jefferson, completed the podium by winning bronze medal with a time of 10.92. Now, if anybody watches Olympic track and field, you guys will know that people only ever remember record breakers and the gold medal winner. So unfortunately, there's still some time. You know, there's the 4x100 meter relay where Sha'Carri can perform there. And if they win gold there, then she'll have her gold medal there. And so she will have lived up to those expectations. But it was great to see St. Lucia, a country that, you know, I've actually been to once. And I knew some people who were from there who are very prideful. It's one of those countries like in the Caribbean, like Sierra Leone is in West Africa, where you have the big countries that everybody always talks about, and your country is always one of those that you never, you know, people don't really represent for you. You don't really hear about it. To see her perform so well and actually win the gold is huge, and by the margin that she won gold by, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, so I think that was really dope to see. And you just see it all over the Olympics. I mean, if anything, what you're seeing is melanin at its finest. I guess I'll go next to the men's 100 because this was a controversial finish between Jamaica and the United States. And so we'll talk about it on the other side and why it was controversial. But let's go ahead and watch the video, and then we'll get to it in a second.
This is close. Jamaica's going to do it. Kishane Thompson is a gold medalist on debut.
Not so fast, my friends.
They're working on the photo. Noah Lyles is looking anxiously.
All right, so lots of controversy around this particular race because the Jamaican sprinter's foot went across the finish line first. But Olympic rules, and from what I remember from high school track, it is your torso that has to get across the finish line first. It doesn't matter if your feet or a foot gets across the finish line. So the first athlete whose torso from the clavicle, this is your clavicle, down, reaches the finish line first is declared the winner. So when I ran track, the thing is, like, you always ran through the finish line and you always kind of leaned in, right? You guys ever notice when people are running and when they're practicing, they always, do that because you want to try to get your clavicle across the line. And so even if somebody's leg crosses, their kind of upper chest has to cross the finish line first. And if you look at any imagery from the finish line, Noah Lyles actually had his chest across the finish line before the Jamaican sprinter. So that's what caused a lot of controversy, and that's why they initially announced it as the Jamaican actually won. And sorry forgive me for forgetting his name. If it's not Usain Bolt, I think that's kind of how most people are when it comes to track and field. Again, because he won so many golds, and you had Asafa Powell and other folks like that from previous years who I do remember more vividly. This young gentleman I'm not as familiar with. Even Noah Lyles is one of those folks that he was more well known because of his controversial statements about basketball, the NBA saying they're world champions, even though there are they don't play against quote unquote the world. So I want to really quickly show you why this photo finish was one that they gave to Noah Lyles just to help understand the controversy, because I think there's a lot of questions here. And I thought it was interesting that it came up, and it's like one of those things where it's like track and field doesn't get a lot of love. It's one of those sports people don't really care about as much. And, that was my best sport in high school. So I do care about track and field. But look, if you see here, the rule is the torso. And in the aerial photo, you'll see here that Noah Lyles' chest is actually crossing the finish line here, where all other competitors' chest does not cross as of yet. As you can see, there's a gap here between his clavicle and the finish line, whereas Noah Lyles is clearly ahead, even though his foot may not have crossed first. And that is why the fundamentals are so important for a sport like this. All right, so not to get too deep into the nuance of how you're supposed to cross the finish line in a 100-meter dash, but I just thought it was great to show. And so other notable winners and people who did really well, and it's continuously going on, the Nigerian women's basketball team, which I actually reported on the Authentic African page, actually made history as well. And so I'm going to show you that here because I thought, it was really important to share. Let me find the post. But any questions, any thoughts, concerns, anything? Have you guys been following the Olympics? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you've been following the Olympics, if you've been paying attention. Is this something that you even care about? I've been following the Olympics every year since I was a kid because I ran track and field, and I had an older sibling. My older sister was a track athlete as well. She was, long jump, triple jump, and I think she was an alternate in the relays. I myself was a conference medalist, district medalist, and a state medalist my senior year, running track. And so, it was a point of pride for me. And so when I graduated from high school, I became an avid supporter of, track and field. And so I do pay pretty close attention to what's happening in track and field in the United States and around the world, especially during the Olympics. I'm still trying to find this post, which is eluding me right now. It's kind of crazy because I just posted it yesterday. But the Nigerian women's basketball team, well, let me just kind of read through, and then I'll show you some imagery in a moment here. Let me just, where are we? Should have just been posted. Oh, you know what? So, oh, my Instagram got ended early. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll still go on YouTube and all the other platforms. But again, let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys have been paying attention at all to what's been going on in the Olympics. Lots of storylines. You know, the world is, I think, trying to, you know, unplug from many of the things going on. And we got a lot to talk about. The protests in Nigeria, Ukraine backing Mali separatists. We got some stuff to talk about tomorrow when we're going live about the news on the continent of Africa. I just felt like we could do something a little bit, you know, more lighthearted on this live today that doesn't really, you know, go into any of the real controversial issues of the day. It feels as though my post may have been taken down. The Nigeria post may have been taken down by NBC because I'm unable to see it. Well, that's unfortunate because, you know, these guys, I mean, basically what I did was I kind of showed you Team USA. So here's what I'll do. I'll pull it up on the screen here since you know, Instagram is giving me some issues. Give me one moment to just pull it up because, you know, I was already planning to just pull it up on Instagram and it all of a sudden disappeared. So Nigeria makes history. Okay. So I'll show that in a moment. In the meantime, let's start talking through what actually happened with Nigeria. It's taking a little while for it to pull up on my screen here. I'm having some issues. And then also we'll talk about women's gymnastics and men's gymnastics too. I mean, they've had a pretty incredible run at the Olympics this year as well. And that's for the USA in particular. So we'll talk about that in a second. As soon as we'll get there. All right. So let me go ahead and present this screen, and then I will talk you through what actually happened. Hopefully, you guys can see my screen. Oh, of course, okay, so let me just pull it up really quickly because now it's on the screen that you're seeing, so I can't actually show it. So the Nigerian women's basketball team made history in Paris 2024 by becoming the first African basketball team, male or female, to reach the quarterfinals of an Olympic tournament. So they secured a spot in the quarterfinals after beating Canada. That's the first ever, obviously, African coach to win. So this is Team Nigeria. And so here's the score. They beat Canada by 9 points. And their team has a vibe. You know, they have dances they do. They all have very, very big personalities. And the FIBA World Championships last summer was a preview of you know, these girls and also a couple of Nigerian American WNBA players were there in support and also helping the coach as well. But here's the celebration after winning by 9 points against Canada. So they finished third in Group B with a 2-1 record, which was enough to qualify as one of the best third place teams in the tournament. So they could potentially win bronze on the 7th with their game, but they have to face the United States in the quarterfinals on Wednesday, August 7th. So this Wednesday, the U.S. women's team is facing Nigeria's women's basketball team. So this is going to be probably a really, really tough matchup. It's likely that Team USA will win that matchup. I don't think anyone expects otherwise, because they do have the best players in the world in terms of women's basketball. So I think that's the expectation. But that is what's left for Nigeria. And then separately, obviously in gymnastics, Simone Biles won silver, I think, in all around. She and the U.S. women's Olympic team, I think, won gold overall. The gymnastics team, and I think that makes her continuing to, increase her lead as the most decorated Olympian ever, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, with that, I'm gonna leave it there. You guys check out the Olympics. As you saw, they are going on until the 11th of August. If I'm not mistaken, NBC has the rights to it, so you can check it out online wherever you watch the Olympics. You can find it. And that's it for now. We will catch up tomorrow. We go live with African Stream, where we're going to talk about this week's news on the continent of Africa. We're going to dive into everything that happened in Nigeria this weekend on Sunday. Unfortunately, 13 people tragically lost their lives protesting. The police in Nigeria, unfortunately, took fatal action against them. And then we will also talk about Mali. Remember, we talked about the Alliance of the Sahelian States, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. And in Mali, there is death squads, as Sha'Carri Richardson so eloquently puts it. And those folks apparently have been backed by the Ukraine, and the Ukraine admitted it. So that is going to be a really interesting story that we are going to be following. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in anything African news related, and you want to know what's happening on the continent in specific detail from people who are on the continent, we are going to have a special guest with us tomorrow on that show who is in Nigeria, who was at the protest and can tell you what happened from his own personal experience. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. We will be sending out invites to that live. So if you want to check that out, just stay tuned and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Share this with anybody who you know might be interested in this kind of information. So with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you all on the next video.
It's going to be a fresh podium. None of the Jamaicans from the Tokyo Games are racing. They're going to be fresh medal winners. Final of the women's 100 is away, and Julien Alfred got out really well. Sha'Carri Richardson's got some work to do, but it's going to be St. Lucia's. Julien Alfred wins the